USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Edge for Friday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day 2024. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. If Punxsutawney Phil sees his shadow, we have 9 more weeks of college hockey ahead of us. And if the sun comes out, we'll still be playing on April 13th. I'm Ed Trefzger along with Dan Rubin, Jim Connelly. Gentlemen, we got 5 games as usual on the list. One of those teams heads into the Bean Pot on Monday, but they've got a game in between, and that's Boston College. They are at UMass Lowell. BC is a minus 270. Lowell is a plus 200, and the over-under on this one is 6.
I'm not sure if I see value here. I kind of do with Lowell. And I know, Dan, you're going to give us all these stats and say that BC sucks around the bean pot. I get it. Right now, Lowell is struggling. And I don't know if Henry Welsh, their goaltender, is back, because Luke Pavicic has been in net for a few weeks now because of an injury to Welsh. If Welsh plays, I like the fact that Lowell could maybe pull off an upset here. Don't forget, they played Boston College twice already this season, and both games were 3-2 losses, and they were tight games. And when I say tight, they were really tight games. I'm not sure that Lowell is the same team, and I think that Boston College has actually improved. So I don't love that value of plus 200 here as much as I might have a month or two ago. And with not knowing the status of Lowell's goaltender, I really don't know if I like it. But go ahead, Dan. I know you have some great stats on BC prior and during and around and in and under the bean pot.
Yeah, I like the value on Lowell. I want to be clear where I kind of come from on where I'm saying for this. And I want to be clear that it's value that I'm finding on Lowell that I like it, because BC historically, and this was the thing you were alluding to, has had its share of trouble around the bean pot. And coming out of 2 BU games with another BU game coming up on Monday, I think there is a situation where BC has to be careful. And Greg Brown's a good enough coach to sound the warning sign. Now, before everyone says, well, what do you mean by warning signs? The last time BC has won both legs of its pre-Bean Pot game, so the weekend before a Monday Bean Pot game, was 2016. And that was also the last time that BC won the Bean Pot. So it's been a while since BC has been able to have success on both weekends prior to its Bean Pot game. The other thing that I'm kind of pointing at when I say that is that, bear in mind that the Bean Pot didn't happen in 2020, 2021 during that weird COVID year. But beyond that, BC has lost specifically to Lowell. Last year was in a shootout at Lowell before the semifinal loss to Harvard. The next weekend they lost again to Maine, and that was before the Consulate beating BU in the consolation game. You go back to 2020, they lost at home before beating Harvard in the consolation game. 2019, they lost at Saugus, 3-0. The last time BC actually won one of those games between the two Bean Pot games, I realize that's a week away, so it's not even this weekend, was the year before that. So you go back to 2018 when it specifically beat Lowell, and even that was only a 1-goal game. And that was between 2 legs of a 4th-place finish. So BC has had its trouble. Now, the other side of it, and that's where I'm kind of pulling the value from on Lowell. Do I think BC is going to lose the game? Honestly, not the way they've been playing right now. This BC team is in another gear. They're playing phenomenal hockey. Every superstar that's on that roster is doing superstar type things. But if you're looking for value, Lowell at home, in between BU games, the Bean Pot coming up is a really big deal. And a lot of people after the BU game on Saturday weren't asking about Lowell. They were asking about the Bean Pot. So you need to fight a bit of that. And again, that's where I'm kind of pulling and looking at a plus 200 and saying, if you're gonna throw some pizza money down, as you'd say, I think Lowell's got a pretty good shot here. And I know Lowell's had its trouble, but there's something to be said for that.
Got a question for you. Earlier on in the season, we talked a bit about Lowell being a bit banged up. How are the Riverhawks right now? Are they healthier than they were at the semester break?
Certainly, they are. But again, I mentioned the goaltender. And if Henry Welsh is not in there, I don't think he's the number one guy. And like, I don't even know how to express that in a way. Like, I don't want to say that Luke Pavicic is not a good goaltender, but Henry Welsh is a better goaltender. And I think Norm Bazin would prefer to play him every game. So if he's missing from the lineup, that is still a very significant injury right now for the Riverhawks. But I think most of their other players, they had some season-ending injuries before the season started. So certain players were going to be missing no matter what. But in terms of the players they could have gotten back, from what I can tell, they've gotten everybody back, except now they've lost Welsh, and that's a big loss for them.
And just to throw in there, could you think of a worse way to start the second half than having to go to Maine and then play a home and home against Providence or playing Boston College? But if they had thrown a BU game in there, maybe that's the only way it could have been worse. I mean, that's a brutal schedule the last few weeks.
Certainly, you had to travel to. You went to Arizona and lost Arizona State, and then did pull out a win against Harvard where they scored 7 goals. And I actually thought, hey, here's your offense. Let's go. The offense is starting to go, but we haven't seen that since.
Let's go all the way out west. Western Michigan is at Denver. The Broncos are a plus 150. The host Pioneers minus 195. The over-under on this one is as high as we've seen all season, 7.5.
Why don't we make it 9.5? I mean, at this point, let's just go really crazy. I get it. There's going to be goals scored in this one. This is one I'd favor the under. I'm not going to touch the money line. I don't care about the money line in this one. Denver's probably going to win. They're supposed to win. Western's a good team. They could do something and maybe pull off an upset. I can't predict that one. That doesn't have a feel to me. Not as much as say Colorado College last weekend. I kind of felt like they could have pulled off a win. They pulled off 2. But 7.5 is really high. And we could get there, but I would not bet it. I would go the other way. 7.5 leaves a lot of 3-2s, 4-2s, 5-1, 5-2, 4-3. You have a lot of numbers that are typical game scores. Sure, 6-3, 7-4, 10-5. They're all out the window. I get it. But are we going to see those? I see more like a 5-2. 4-3, 4-2 type of game here, Dan. Maybe I'm wrong on this one. I just don't see it just automatically getting that high.
I think it's hard. I agree. I'm not touching the money line here. I think Denver, I can't see Denver after what happened against North Dakota. I can't see them continuing a slide here. I just can't see it. They're too good. I do agree with you on the over-under that it's going to be very hard. Now, the thing to be said about Denver is that they would have hit the over in 4 of the last 5 games on a 7.5. The only one that wouldn't was the Saturday game at North Dakota at the Ralph. So they would have hit it both games against Omaha, would have hit it a game against St. Cloud. Those are a lot of games that I think that make it kind of juicy to bet the over. But the problem is Western Michigan's defense, I think, keeps this down a bit. And for that, Denver, both teams can score. I think when you look at their numbers of goals per game, they can both score. I think Western's a little bit what they're giving up on offense, they'll make up on defense in that, goal and a half per game or goal per game on either side. But I think that's enough to keep it under. And like you said, you need to get to a 5-4 game, a 4-4 game, to a 5-3 just to hit the over. That's been really hard to do unless you get goals early. I don't see this getting, 4 goals in the second period. I just don't. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the under is probably a better bet. I do think the over's in play.
It's in play,
but I think the under's. I think the under's better.
When you look at the numbers, share numbers of both teams, it's in play, but I can't see it just necessarily being an automatic. And I also think that Denver has been a little under of recent weeks. Maybe they explode here. Maybe this is the time that they go back home and they explode. But this team is not shown themselves to be a 6-goal team of late.
Well, and Western has not been able to get anywhere close to breaking a 7.5 in last weekend.
Right.
They had a pair of 2-1 games against Colorado College at home. I mean, yeah, they would have made it in the series, like one of the games against Duluth at home, but on the road, they didn't even hit the number playing at Miami. So that was a 5 and a 7. So I think it's hard.
Last week, their whole series didn't hit 7.5. So
no, it didn't. No chance. This is getting there in my mind.
you just talked yourself into that.
I really did. You know what? The heck with it. You want a definitive answer? I think it's in play, but I still don't think it's going to happen. Lock it down. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I think it might happen, but I don't think it will. I think that sums up what you just said.
I'm ready to run for president.
We're going to take a break, and we got 3 games going on in the Big Ten, one that's kind of a wide spread and 2 that are ultra close. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Where are my hockey fans at? Present! Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA Ice Hockey Championship time, when the hottest teams in the country face off under one roof. Be there to see your squad hoist the ultimate trophy overhead. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with USCHO Edge. The Big Ten has 3 games that we're going to look at. One of them is Michigan at Ohio State. Michigan is minus 238. The home underdog, Ohio State, is plus 180. The over-under on this one is 7. The way Michigan has been this year, they could get a shutout against Ohio State and still match the 7. So that sounds over to me, but I'll let you experts dig into this one.
I don't like the 7 number. I believe 5-2, 6-1, 7-0, 4-3. They're all in play. And definitely 5-3, 5-4. They're all in play as well. This whole game I don't like. In terms of lines, in terms of money. I mean, Dan, maybe you see it differently. I just don't see anything here that's value. And I know we love the high lines. We love the big numbers. We love to laugh at them. We love to think, oh, this game's going to go over. You know, I think there was a 7 earlier this year. It was Boston College and somebody else. And I said, oh, bets, take the over, no problem. And it was over before the end of the first period. I get it. But this is not the game that I feel comfortable just, slamming down money and saying, hey, they're going to hit 8, 9, 10.
My problem with this one is I'm not sure if they can hit 8 or 9 because I don't think Ohio State's going to help. Like Ohio State gives up a lot of goals, and the Ohio State penalty kill against the Michigan power play, I think is good for 2 goals on the weekend in general, like somewhere along the line, possibly even in the first game. Michigan scoring just as many goals as Denver against an Ohio State defense that gives up goals and is one of the worst penalty kills in the country with a power play that's pushing 40%. I look at it and say, well, that's good enough for a goal. So I think when you start swinging for the fences, I think the number is, I think that Ohio State needs to get a couple of goals in the first period to help out getting to 7. I don't know that it's going to get there at this point of the year. Ohio State's a good team that's just lost a lot of games. So that said, they've also lost a lot of games in the Big Ten. There's also at home, and it's a rivalry. I know we talk about rivalries. I mean, I know they're probably not blacking out the M's around Columbus, and this is just one that I just don't feel comfortable hitting that over. I do think Michigan's probably going to score 5 goals. I just don't know that Ohio State is going to be able to match them. If you're thinking over, then you're really hoping Ohio State puts together a performance that says, I like what I have seen from them, despite the numbers. And if you're picking the under and you're saying that's not true, then you're looking at the numbers and saying Ohio State, as much as good as they've looked, they're not going to help themselves here.
What about the money line? Is this one you even consider, or do you just stay away from this one?
I stay away from it.
I'm dodging it. I don't like it. The numbers don't work.
This would be a game that I would check the puck line on. Now, I don't love puck line bets. I know we don't usually talk about them, and we go on the money line. I don't hate that if there's like I'd say a goal and a half. Maybe that's worth looking at Michigan for, but I don't love. I mean that's about it. I wouldn't take the money line.
I'd have to really think about the puck line though.
Yeah.
When you really look at it, giving up a goal and a half to maybe shade $80 to $100, it's just too dangerous to me.
Yeah. There's not a lot of value in it.
No.
The other two matchups are pretty close that we have on the show today. Michigan State is a minus 130 at Notre Dame, plus 100. The over-under is 6. We've talked before about Notre Dame being a marquee name that attracts some money, and they're playing at Compton Family Ice Arena. But this one's a lot closer than I would have expected.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's, I think when we were going through the games, which one do we put on? This one, because it was so close at Notre Dame, kind of befuddled me. Does Notre Dame have that much of a home ice advantage? I don't think they do. So because of that, I would shade Notre Dame heavily here. I would not be putting my money there. It's this one kind of struck me as a little weird. You, Dan?
Yeah, I didn't like it. Again, same idea in terms of goals scored too, where Notre Dame has given up a goal in a quarter, we'll say, to Michigan State on average per game. And at this point of the season, that's not something that I think I really love out of a team to bet on them with, because if you're looking at the scores and you're looking at what they've done over the course of the year, can they get to a certain number? And you look back even at the Wisconsin series, Notre Dame, when it was a 2-1 game, yes, they lost the 2-1 game. They could have got, I would say they can get to 3. But if you're looking at an opponent, you're saying they're going to get to 4 or 5 goals, and it's a team that is better than them. Ohio State, they got to 5, but Ohio State is behind them. So if you're talking about Wisconsin, you're talking about Michigan State, you're even talking about Michigan at this point. I don't know that Notre Dame can get to a number that would make me feel comfortable knowing that Michigan State is averaging 4 goals a game. Even if you take a goal off and they get to 4, I don't think they can.
Let's take a look at the last one we've got for today. Minnesota at Wisconsin. The Golden Gophers are plus 100. The Badgers are minus 130 at the Kohl Center. The over-under on this one is fairly low at 5.5.
Yeah, but probably the best game of the week, really, when you look at it. I don't know what to say about the over-under. Listen, Wisconsin's limiting goals right now. You're not scoring a ton against them. Do I see this as a 3-2 game? Probably. So that puts you under. You said 5.5, correct, Ed?
Yep.
So we're talking about you now under with 5 goals. I could see a 2-1 game here. I could see a 3-1 game here, but I could also see 4-3, 4-2. I get it that you could bet the over. In terms of the two teams, I like Wisconsin more because they didn't have a great weekend and they haven't had some of their best hockey of late. Now they're going to, I feel like they're going to start to turn it around. This is the time. This is where they start to play their big games. And I think that Mike Hastings understands how to instruct big boy pants. And these are the two games that I think that Wisconsin will put them on, and they will play some of their best hockey of the year.
I agree. I think Michigan last weekend came in at home, buzzsaw mentality, and playing for what amounted to, I mean, maybe they listened to us and heard us say that there weren't enough positives. And so they went out and scored 10 goals against Wisconsin and lost that game in overtime, the second one. But I don't think Wisconsin is a team that's going to give up 10 goals over a weekend every weekend. And that's an outlier. So I look at this weekend against the Minnesota team that can score. I mean, I think they can. I think they could easily get to 2 goals against Wisconsin, but I don't think they can hold off. And I don't think it's going to be enough. And so I look at this weekend, and I think Wisconsin, you're right, has an opportunity to right a couple of wrongs that hit them and drop them down the pairwise. It's at home. It's in Madison, which is a phenomenal city and a great college town, and you know, it has a lot of support. And you know what they've done this year has awoken a lot of Wisconsin's culture. So I think if this were in Minnesota, maybe we'd be talking a little bit differently. But this is in Wisconsin. I just take Wisconsin. In terms of the over/under, I mean, it's a well-placed number. I can see this being a 3-2 game.
One last little tidbit. Last weekend, Wisconsin became the first team to get to 20 wins this season. That also clinched 26 winning seasons and 26 seasons behind the bench as a head coach at all the different levels for Mike Hastings.
Not bad.
We should have thought about that at the beginning of the year when we thought it might be 2 or 3 years to rebuild.
Not bad. Not bad, Hasty. I think that guy's one of the classiest guys in college hockey. Congratulations to him on that. But listen, 20 is, you're the first to 20. We didn't even bring this up on Monday on our podcast, Ed. You're the first to 20. That's hard to get to. You put yourself in a position to get to 30 now, which is even harder to get to. We have so few teams that ever get to 30. National champions finish the year with 25, 26, 28 sometimes. This is a really good team. Like, that's the reality behind it.
They've got a little wiggle room. Since they were in the icebreaker, they get 36 regular season games.
Right.
So you've got 2 left that you can lose.
That's an extra 2, but this is a really good team. You know,
Yep.
To think that this team could get to 30 wins and maybe not win a national championship, that's reality. I mean, that's pretty strong. They're probably going to, at least before they even get into their conference team, their tournament, they're probably going to have 27 wins at least. That's my projection.
And the other part of it is,
you win a few in the season. Come on, like you're rolling.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you're rolling at that point. Find someone who would say something bad about Mike Hastings. I guarantee you won't. So that's impossible. The man's one of the nicest men in hockey. Like, if there's someone out there who deserves to, you look at a guy with, what'd you say, 26 consecutive, winning seasons, or find someone who would look at that and be like, man, what a jerk. He never loses or something like that. No. He's still as humble. He is as humble and salt of the earth as they come.
Nobody thinks of him as Tom Brady.
No. Like,
or Bill Belichick, for that matter.
Or Bill Belichick. Good comp there, Ed. Yeah.
Like, you win all those games. You'd think someone would get angry at him. We all love the guy.
Yeah, so true.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen 4, April 11th and 13th, 2024 at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. For Jim Connelly, for Dan Rubin, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Edge.